Hello and welcome to paper 2 of Black June. We'll look at the first part of the paper 2, which is the structural, and consists of 15 structural questions. Don't forget to subscribe and to leave your comments. You can equally visit our blog, and don't forget to share. Njagi has a simple rate of 5% per year. Due to crisis in the year 20XX, the Njagi reduced the rate to 0% from 1st January to 30th June 20XX. Given that Linda saved 40,000 FCFE on the 1st of January, how much will she receive on December 31st, 20XX? What is required of this question is for you to understand that from the 1st of January to the 31st of June, to the 30th of June, there is no interest because the interest is 0. So the time interval here in total is half a year. So the amount will be equal to principal plus simple interest. That will give us 40,000 into 1 plus 0.05 times 0.5, which is 41,000 FCFE. Given the function, state the domain. For domain, we just have to look at the denominator, equate it to 0, and exclude that value from the set of real numbers. That will give us the domain, because that value will make the function undefined or to have a value of infinity. So this value will be 1, and the domain of definition is a set of real numbers excluding 1. Either use that slash or you use minus, or you can write in interval notation. B, we have to look for the inverse. To look for the inverse, we just select f of x be equal to y and we solve for x. When you solve for x, we will have x to be equal to y minus 3 on y plus 2. We now replace x by f inverse of x and y by x. So that's the inverse of this function. If they ask for the domain of the inverse, equate the denominator to 0 as well and exclude that value. Hence, find the pre-image of minus 1. The pre-image is that element that is found in the domain. So the pre-image is that element that is mapped onto minus 1. So we can use the inverse function to look for the pre-image. So we look for f inverse of minus 1, and that will give us minus 4. So the pre-image of minus 1 is minus 4. Another way to say it is the image of minus 4 is 1. Solve the equation f of x equals 1. So we just equate f of x to 1. We solve, and we have x to be equal to minus 2 on 3. If a star b equals ab mod 5, find 2 star 3, the identity element and the inverse of 4. This is actually a binary operation and based on modular arithmetic or modular work. So 2 star 3, just use the formula. 2 star 3 is equal to 2 times 3, which is of 6. 6 mod 5 is equal to just the remainder. 6 divided by 5 gives us 1 remainder 1. So we take the remainder in. The next thing is to look for the identity element. This is the element that when an element or an entry operates with it, the result is equal to that same entry. So A star identity element is equal to A. And the only element that will behave like this here is 1. Only 1. And then we have to, the next thing is to find the inverse of 4. To look for the inverse of 4, we have to look for that element that operates with 4 to give the identity element. And when we test from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 is the only element that gives that value. Then we have this matrix. Find the matrix product AB and state its order. So this question is on transpose products and singularity of matrices. So that product is equal to 13, 17, and the order is 2 by 1. B, if 2a plus x is equal to A transpose, find the matrix X. So 2 times A plus matrix X equals A transpose. That's the transpose of A, which is obtained by interchanging rows for columns. We can solve for X, and the matrix X equals minus 2 minus 5, 1 minus 5. Now C, in the matrix A, which value should take the place of the entry 5 to make it singular? So we have to replace 5 by, let us say, X, and the determinant should be equal to 0. Singular matrices have a determinant, means the determinant is 0. So 2 times X, that number, minus 1 times 3 should give us 0, and X should be 3 on 2. So we can replace 5 by 3 on 2, and this matrix will become singular. Hello and welcome to paper 2 of Black June. We'll look at the first part of the paper 2, which is the structural, and consists of 15 structural equations. Don't forget to subscribe and to leave your comments. You can equally visit our blog, and don't forget to share. You are given the diagram below. Find the angles alpha and beta. Observe that 60 degrees and alpha are alternate angles. Look at angle 60 degrees and alpha there. Those lines are parallel lines. Therefore, alpha and 60 degrees are alternate angles. So alpha equals 60 degrees. And we can now look for theta. For theta, we first of all have to note that that triangle formed above is an isosceles triangle. So that end is theta, this other end beside alpha is equally theta. So 2 times theta plus this other angle, which is supplementary to 140 degrees, to give us 180 degrees. Therefore, our theta is equal to 140 degrees divided by 2. Why? Because this other angle here is 40 degrees, and from 180, 140 is left, and 2 theta is equal to 140. Given the Venn, that number of elements in y intersection x equals 15, number of elements in y only is 11. The words here are very important. Very important. Any mistake with anyone will lead to poor performance. And all of that information has been given. Complete the Venn diagram, knowing that the number of elements in x intersection y intersection z equals 10. Note that whenever you have to complete this type of Venn diagram, you must start at the center. At the center. So at the center we have 10 for all the three. Then the next one is x intersection y. X intersection y is 15, but you have already used 10, so 5 are left. Then the next one we have x intersection z. According to the equation, x intersection z is equals to 10, but you have already used the 10, so 0 is left. You don't actually need to put it. I'm just putting it for illustration, but if you put it, it's okay. Nobody will penalize you. And then you equally need the intersection of x intersection z, but it has not been given. But y only has been given, so we put in the value of y only. Equally, we have been told that the number of elements in y is 32. So when we sum all the elements in y, we are going to have that value. And that gives us value of y to be 6, which we already calculated. Now the Venn is complete. B, Find the value of A if the number of elements is 52. That means when you sum everything and equate to 52, you can obtain the value of A. Solving for A will give us A to be equal to 2. An urn, like a bag or any other thing that you can use, contains 12 identical balls, 5 red. 2 balls are drawn at random in succession. Draw the tree if the 2 balls are drawn without replacement. Find the probability that you obtain at least one known red ball. Be careful with the word without replacement. This means when you draw a ball, you don't put into the urn before doing the next draw, since the draws are done in succession, and these events are equally independent events. So let's draw the tree. We have red and not red. How many red balls? 5 on 12, not red, 7 on 12. This is for the first draw. For the second draw, the number of balls must reduce by 1 because it's without replacement. So we'll have red and not red. One, if the first ball was red, it means you are left with 4 red balls now on 11. And you have not removed any known red balls, so you are still left with the normal 7. Now, if the first ball is not red, then you can equally have this. If the first ball is not red for the second dichotomous, we will still have our 5 red balls on 11. And if the first is not red, you are left now with how many non-red balls? 6 on 11. Note that for any pair of branch, when you add the angst, the value must be equal to 1. So the tree is complete. The next thing is to find the probability that we obtain at least one known red ball. At least one known red ball means you can either obtain the first is red, the second is not red, the first is not red, the second is red, or both of the balls are not red. Another way to describe this is the probability that none of the balls, the probability that both balls are not red. If both balls are not red, is the same as 1 minus probability that the both balls are red. So this gives us 1 minus 5 on 12 times 4 on 11, which is 28 on 33. An inverse function is defined as f inverse of x equals 2x minus 1. Find the function f of x. Well, I know this type of question seems difficult, but to get the function f of x from f inverse of x, just do the same as when you are looking for the inverse function. So 2x minus 1 equals y. We solve x, and f of x equals x plus 1 on 2. Hence, find the image of 5. For the image of 5, you just have to look for f of 5, and that will give us 3. What type of relation is f of x? You first of all have to look for f of x, and that will be equal to f, replacing x by f of x, will have x plus 1 on 2. All of that plus 1 on 2, and simplifying will give us x plus 3 on 4. This is actually a one-to-one relation. Yes, this is a 1-to-1 relation. Okay, you are given the logic table, complete the 5 spaces. Looking at this logic table critically, we see the implication, which is the P implies Q. And P implies Q is true when both are the same. That means when both are false or both are true. It is true when both are the same. And it is also true when the second statement is true. Those are the only conditions for it to be true. Both are same, either false, true, or the second statement is true. And in this case, for the first one, you have false. So that false, they will actually give us false will give us true, because they are the same. Then for the second one, we have true, false. It will be false because the second statement is false. So we have false. Then we have equally the negation of P and Q. Negation of P and Q. Let us look at the second one. The first one has been done. We have false, true. For false, true, negation of false is true. So that gives us true. This becomes true because it's AND logic. Then the next one you have true, false. Negation of true is false. So we have false, false. When you have false, false for AND statement, it gives us false. Then the last one, we have to give the operation that has been used. They have given us all the values. And when you look at it critically, you see that when P and Q are false, it is true. When P and Q are true, it is true. When 1 is false, it is false. This one therefore means that whenever A is true, B is true. Whenever B is true, A is true. And if 1 is false, other one is false. This can only mean a double implication. And a double implication is called a biconditional. That's another name. So P, if and only if, Q. And that gives us that double implication there. Given 1 minus 3x into 2 plus x equals 0, solve for x in the quad, state your answer in the set of natural numbers and state your answer in set of integers. So this is already in the factorized form. N is a set of naturals and z is a set of integers. So when we solve this equation by equating each to factor to 0, we have x to be 1/3 or x to be equal to minus 2. In the set of natural numbers, there is no solution because 1/3 is not a natural number and minus 2 is not a natural number. In z, we have only one answer, which is minus 2, because minus 2 is an integer. Find the area and perimeter formed on a ring with external and internal diameters of 10 cm and 7 cm respectively, given that arcs AB and CD subtend 60 degrees at center. It will be nice to have a sketch of this particular question to visualize it and take note of the angle subtended, which is 60 degrees. So for the external circle, rather, to form a ring, because a ring consists of 2 circles and the circles here are concentric. So let us sketch. We have the shorter radii and the longer one. That is the area bounded by the ABCD. The shorter radius is 7, the longer one is 10, the angle is 60. And that's the area whose perimeter you have to look for, and the area as well. So the area is equal to the area of the external circle times 360 degrees times 60 on 360 degrees minus the area of the smaller one times 60 on 360 degrees. So this difference you can just factorize to have pi into r squared minus r squared times 60 on 360. And this area will give us 26.71 squared centimeters. Now for the perimeter is AC plus BD plus AD plus CD. But we know that A to C is the same as B to Z, which is the difference of the radii. And AB and CD are arc lengths. And the area, the perimeter of an arc is given by 2 pi radius theta on 360. So when we add these two, we have 2 pi capital R times 60 on 360 plus 2 pi small r times 60 on 360. Factorizing these two and simplifying, we have 23.81 centimeters as the radius as the distance around this particular shaded area. Figure ABCD is a parallelogram. State the coordinates of the points D. Find the midpoint of AB. What is the length of the line segment CD? So the midpoint is the average of the coordinate values, and the length is the root of the squares of difference values. So our points D, as can be seen, the x value is 4 and the y value is 2. The midpoints of AB will be equal to the average values. At A you have 1, 0, and at B you have 4, 6. So that gives us those values to the midpoints. And CD is equal to, using the right angle triangle, you have the coordinates of C and D, and from coordinate geometry, you obtain the value to be root 13, which is 3.61 units. The pie chart below shows for French, English, biology, and math students in a particular school. Find the missing angle. Now you have to know that the sum of all the angles for a pie chart or a circle graph is 360 degrees. So one of the angles here is 90, that is for English. The missing angle is economics. So economics will be equal to 360 minus the sum of these other angles that are present, and that gives us 40 degrees. The B part says if 300 students offer math, how many students offer econs? Note that the amounts are proportional to the angles here. So these 300 students corresponds to 150 degrees, and let y correspond to the 40, which is for economics. Solving for y by cross multiplication gives us 80 students. So there are 80 students for that particular one. Question 15, find the side x. Find the side x shown. When you look at this figure very well, we have to actually do some trigonometry to come out with the value of the length x, and we can annotate the diagram by that short distance there to be y and the complete length here to be l. In this case, x will be equal to L minus y. Now let us look for y. We know that tan 70 degrees will be equal to opposite, that is y. Tan 70 degrees opposite is 119, all that on y. So our y will be equal to 119 on tan 70, and that gives us y to be 43.31. But we still need the value of L to obtain x. So for L, we are going to use the other triangle complete. That remaining angle there is 64 degrees from 180. Since this other angle here is 26, the remaining one there should be 64. So in this case now, using this opposite side, since you don't know the hypotenuse, tan 64 degrees will be equal to L on 119. And our L is 119 times 64, which is 243.99. From here, our x will be equal to L minus y, which should be equal to 206.68 units. That is centimeters. Well, thank you so much for staying with our team as we actually anticipate and prepare ourselves for the GCE. Note that the GCE will not actually come from space. It will come from the questions your teachers have given you in class. Thank you so much and stay tuned. You can visit our blog to get past questions on other subjects, and stay tuned equally for the examiners bad hand that some lecturers will be sending to us from another school which will update on our site. Thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe and share and support us if you can motivate us by that. Bye.